Mukha, Hoy Krishna Sevan Mukha, Brahma Hoite Naradera Mati. Narada Hoite Vyasa, Madhva Kohe Vyasa Dasa, Purna Pragna Padmanabha Gati. Nirhari Madhava Vamse Aksobhya Paramahamse Shishya Boli Angikara Kore Nirhari Madhava Vamse Aksobhya Paramahamse Shishya Boli Aksobhya Sishya Jaya Tirtaname Parichaya Taradasya Jnana Sindhu Tore. Taha Huete Daya Nidhi Taradasa Vidya Nidhi Rajendra Hoilotana Hate Taha Huete Tanhara Kinkara Jaya Dharma Name Parichaya Parampara Janu Baloma Te Jaya Dharma Dasye Kyati Shri Purushottamayati Tanhaite Brahmanya Tirtha Suri Dharma Dhyasa Kyati Vyasa Tirtha Tanra Dasa Lakshmi Pati Vyasa Dasa Tanha Haite Madhavendra Puri Jaya Dharma Madhavendra Purivara Sishyavara Shri Ishvara Nityananda Shri Advaita Vibhu Madhavendra Ishvara Purikidanya Korilena Shri Chaitanya Jagad Guru Gora Maha Prabhu Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Na He Anya Rupanuga Janera Jivana Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya Rupanuga Janera Jivana Vishvambara Priyankara Shri Svarupa Damodara Shri Goswami Rupa Sanatan Vishvambara Priyankara Shri Svarupa Damodara Shri Goswami Rupa Sanatan Rupa Priya Mahajana Jiva Raghunatahana Tanra Priya Kavi Krishna Das Rupa Priya Mahajana Krishna Dasa Priyavara Narottama Seva Para Yanrapada Vishvanatha Asa Krishna Dasa Priyavara Narottama Seva Para Yanrapada Vishvanatha Vishvanatha Bhakta Sata Baladeva Jagannatha Tanra Priya Shri Bhakti Vinoda Vishvanatha Bhakta Sata Baladeva Jagannatha Tanra Priya Shri Bhakti Vinoda Mahabhaga Vattabhara Shri Gora Kishora Bara Hari Bhajane Deyanra Moda Mahabhaga Ihara Paramahamsa Gorangera Nija Vamsa Tandera Charane Mama Gati Ihara Paramahamsa Tandera Charane Mama Gati Ami Seva Udasina Namete Tridandi Dina Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Ami Seva Udasina Namete Tridandi Dina Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saras Shri Varsha Banavivara Sada Sevya Seva Para Tanhara Dayita Dasa Nama Shri Varsha Banavivara Sada Sevya Seva Para Tanhara Dayita Dasa Nama Tara Pradana Pracharaka Shri Bhakti Vedanta Nama Patita Janete Daya Dhamma In the beginning of creation, four-headed Brahma received the science of devotional service from the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Brahma taught this divine science to Devarshi Narada, and Narada imparted it to Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. Sripad Madhvacharya, who is also known as Purna Pragna Tirtha, calls himself a servant of Vyas and is the guru and sole refuge of Padmanabh Tirtha. The two other principal disciples of Madhava are Nirhari Tirtha and Madhava Tirtha. Madhava Tirtha accepted the great Paramahamsa Aksobhya Tirtha as a disciple. The principal disciple of Aksobhya Tirtha was known as Jaya Tirtha, serving whom was Jnana Sindhu's only purpose in life. Jnana Sindhu taught the science of devotional service to Dayanidhi, whose servant was Vidyanidhi. Vidyanidhi, in turn, imparted this knowledge to Rajendra Tirtha, and he accepted Jayadharma as his servant. In this way, you should properly understand this disciplic succession. The great sannyasi Sri Purushottam Tirtha received the knowledge of devotional service from Jayadharma. The principal disciple of Purushottam Tirtha was the saintly Subramanya Tirtha, whose servant was the great Vyasa Tirtha. Vyasa Tirtha's servant was Lakshmipati Tirtha, and his disciple was Madhavendra Puri Goswami. The chief disciple of Madhavendra Puri was Ishvara Puri, and two of his other disciples were the renowned incarnations of Godhead, Sri Nityananda and Advaita Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual preceptor of all the worlds, made Ishvara Puri greatly fortunate by accepting him as his spiritual master. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and is the very life of those Vaishnavas who follow in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami. Sri Svarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami gave great happiness to Vishvambar, Lord Chaitanya. The great souls Jiva Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami became very dear to Rupa Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami's beloved student was Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, who was an intimate friend of Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami's single disciple was Narottam Das. He always engaged in the service of his guru and was also very dear to Krishna Das Kaviraj. To serve the lotus feet of Narottam Das Thakur was the only desire of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was the instructing spiritual master of Baladev Vidyabhushan. Jagannath Das Babaji was a very prominent acharya after Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan and was the beloved instructing spiritual master of Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's intimate friend and associate was the eminent Mahabhagavat Sri Gaurkishore Das Babaji, whose sole joy was found in Hari Bhajan. All these great saintly Vaishnava Paramahamsas are members of Lord Gauranga's spiritual family. Their lotus feet are my refuge. I am devoid of any real interest in devotional service and am but a poor and lowly Tridandi sannyasi named Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Following the custom of Vaishnava authors, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has placed in his name at the end of this song. To glorify Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and his beloved disciple Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada as spiritual masters in disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the translators have composed the following verse. The renowned Sri Varshabhanavi Dayata Das, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is always engaged in the service of his spiritual master, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. His foremost disciple preacher is Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has spread the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world and is thus a reservoir of compassion for all fallen souls. Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshitarane. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namane I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at His lotus feet. Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayata Das, another name of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, who is favored by Srimati Radharani and who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhurya Ujjvala Premadya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Sri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who delivered devotional service enriched with the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dina Tarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. Hare Krishna. So today marks the 89th anniversary of the departure from this world of Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privajakacharya Astotartata Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. There is very much that can be and should be said about such a great personality who is universally confirmed as a Nitya Siddha Parikar, descending from the spiritual world simply to enact the purification, upliftment, and forward march of the disciplic succession. It is very noteworthy, this prayer, Sri Guru Parampara, glorification of the disciplic succession, ultimately beginning from Lord Brahma himself, is composed by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is himself a very eminent and prominent and important link in the disciplic succession. In this material world, unlike the spiritual world, where time is conspicuous by its absence, we all exist in time and space restrictions. Some of us are born first, some of us are born after, some are born a few years later, some are born 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later than another. So it is quite logical and obvious that our lifespans are not, we don't start at the starting line when the gun, it's like some of us will be here for a certain period of time that can be measured, 19 such and such until 2000 such and such. So how will things go on? How will the transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness be upkept, and how will it be furthered, that it will not only keep pace, but will always be superior to any inferior presentation of what is so-called truth or desirable by the contemporary personalities who are under the influence of the external energy of the Lord and the competitive flow of the modes of material nature. Krishna consciousness always stands triumphant. When our Srila Prabhupada met at the age of 25, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in 1922, we all know the story. It's very poignant, beautiful, and even, let's say, transcendently humorous. Srila Prabhupada was a follower of the universally, actually all over the world, and certainly in India, independence movement to get free from the rule of the British imperialists, and have our own sovereign nation. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who was himself criticized, why are you cooperating with the British in their policies? Because by doing so, they are providing us law and order and allowing us to engage in our activities. It is the purpose of the government to facilitate Brahminical activity, and they are doing that. Yet at the same time, he didn't condone or subscribe to the policies of the foreign rulers, nor did he put much stock in the idea of what people in general thought would be the superior alternative, to have their own government run by Indians. It doesn't matter who rules. This is a temporary cause. And under the modes of material nature, one particular government or ruling situation is toppled or overcome, and the new one comes in, and over time, short or long, it turns out to be also bad, in many cases even worse than previously. All this ultimately comes down to, or looks up to the point, that only Krishna is the supreme ruler. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. Only when one understands that Krishna is the owner, controller, and the actual friend, the actual personality who can help every living entity, only then can you have true peace, true proper arrangement, like Lord Ramachandra's Ram Raj, proper distribution of all necessary goods, commodities, and services, everyone engaged according to their varna and ashram properly, so that they have comfortable living in this world and guaranteed salvation at the time of death, and what to speak of going back home, back to Godhead. Be thou happy by this yagna, because by its performance, all desirable things will be bestowed upon you. Bhukti, comfortable living; mukti, the liberation; and ultimately bhakti, prema bhakti, love of Godhead, which is the ultimate need of every living entity. I was defeated, Srila Prabhupada remarked, happily. Like if you get defeated or conquered in a debate, you're really, really strongly, so strongly that Prabhupada believed in the cause of independence, that after laboring for so many years in one of the most prestigious universities, he'd graduated with honors. Graduation day, he refused to appear. The word at the time was boycott everything British. British goods, British services, British titles, which more or less put him in position of being unemployed. At great personal risk to himself. You really have to believe in a cause to put yourself in such a position. And within the first few minutes of meeting, I have met such a nice, saintly person. I was defeated. But the defeat of the Vaishnava is he paramdristva nivartante. He replaces the inferior thing that you are attached to we can say, justifiably, because you have no knowledge of what is superior. So you're helpless to accept the inferior thing. You must be attached to something. He immediately understood that the cause of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the supreme cause. I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately, not officially, but within my heart, which is, of course, the more important acceptance. Prabhupada's contemporary older godbrothers thought he's a junior disciple, only taking initiation in 1932. The mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and his beginning to accept disciples began in 1918. And many of his closest, seemingly closest disciples had joined at that time, or the early 1920s. And who is this new person that our Guru Maharaj has become so intimate with, revealing his mind in confidence to? And he was a grihasta. They even had a derogatory term in Bengali, rotten grihasta. So the E-man proud brahmachari sannyasi thing, it's not a new thing. It's been around. I was defeated, but it wasn't a loss, it was an immense gain. I liked being defeated by my spiritual master. Our approach to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is, of course, through the mercy of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, as was composed here, his foremost preacher disciple, so to understand Prabhupada's relationship with his spiritual master is foundational for us, and also simultaneously greatly relishable and instructive. So, having said that, we'll spend our precious and limited time hearing about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta through the association of Srila Prabhupada with his spiritual master. In July of 1935, so this is in the less than 18 months of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's presence on this planet, came to install the deity of Lord Krishna and to institute deity worship at the Bombay Gaudiya Math, which our Srila Prabhupada helped to establish. Not only helped, but was the leader to establish it. He was pleased with what his disciples had done so far, and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that much of the work was due to Abai Babu. He had collected the funds and established a new center. Why is Abai living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be president of this Bombay center. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati replied, "It is better that he is living outside your company. He will do. When the time comes, he will do everything himself. You do not have to recommend him." Abai had not been present when that was spoken, but his godbrothers told him what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had said. These words of his spiritual master, with their mysteriously prophetic air, were important to Abai. He treasured the words within himself and meditated upon their meeting. So we are all very, very grateful to Srila Prabhupada's disciple, one of his first and earliest disciples, Srila Satsvarup Das Goswami, who is a natural writer a literary person, and he was named by Srila Prabhupada to write his biography. So, and that was done immediately. One note, when there was a great personality that his biography, his or her biography, would be a very important and glorious contribution to human society, it is best to do it immediately after that person leaves this world, while memories are fresh and the availability of firsthand accounts is plentiful, because time just has a way of erasing all these things. And then it leaves those who try to make the biography, however many decades or hundreds of years later, much more difficult. It becomes hazy, vague, and questionable. Is this true? Is this account verifiable? Etc., etc. So Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita was compiled between 1978 and completed in the Kartik season in Vrindavan in 1982, just immediately after Prabhupada's departure. So many now, over 40 years, we have this great treasure of Prabhupada's biography, and we all attest that as time goes by, it becomes all the more sweet, relishable, and important. In November 1935, 13 months prior to his departure, he was again with his spiritual master in Vrindavan. It was the Kartik season, the ideal time to visit Vrindavan, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was staying for a month with his disciples at peaceful Radha Kund, the sacred lake where Radha and Krishna used to sport. After leaving Bombay in July, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had gone to Calcutta, where he had spoken on radio, delivered public lectures, welcomed back the preachers he had sent to Europe, and finished publishing his Srimad Bhagavatam translation and commentary. Then in October, he had come to Radhakund, occupying the small one-story house Bhaktivinoda Thakur had constructed. You can still visit that place. Occupying the small one-story house, he had been reading and speaking to the assembled devotees on the Upanishads, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam. He also installed deities, the Radha Kunja Bihari Mat. If you do Govardhan Prikram in the proper direction and you're entering into Radha Kund village, that will be the first thing you see in a place called Malahari Kunj, a place where the Mukta Charita, the pearl pastime, took place, and some other pastimes which we don't have time to mention. The banks of Radha Kund were overhung with bright green foliage growing from the garlanded branches of ancient tamarind, tamal, and nim trees. In the shallows of the water, cranes stood on stilt-like legs, while river terns, Terns, skimmed across the lake, sometimes abruptly diving for fish. Sometimes a tortoise would poke its nose up from the water's depth, or a fish would jump. Green parrots, usually in pairs, flew in and out of the green trees, and sparrows chirped and hopped from place to place. Peacocks were also there, mostly in nearby gardens, as were occasional rabbits and even deer. The atmosphere was enriched with the history of Krishna Leela. 5,000 years ago, Radha and Krishna had engaged in transcendental pastimes here, and only 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya had rediscovered Radha Kund. Lord Chaitanya's great follower, Raghunath Das, had resided here for many years, constantly chanting Hare Krishna and discussing the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And here, in a small bhajan kutir, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had written the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita the narrative of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati relished so much. Many of the inhabitants of Radhakund were Babajis living in small bhajan kutirs and spending their time chanting Hare Krishna. So Satsvarup Maharaj composed a free verse rendering, poetry rendering of the entire Leela Amrita, and in this section paralleling the description of the important instruction that Srila Prabhupada will receive in this place, Satsvarup Maharaj took very great note how in such a sacred topmost place the instruction to deliver all mankind was given, which is most appropriate because the Madhurya of Radha and Krishna has descended to this world in the form, in complete substantial non-difference of the Audarya of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the distribution of love of Godhead through the Harinam Sankirtan movement, which naturally expanded himself, especially under the vision and desire of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as transcendental book distribution. Please continue to listen attentively. Having heard of his spiritual master's stay here, Abai, bringing his son with him, had traveled from Bombay just to have darshan of his spiritual master. To see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was always an occasion for jubilation, but to see him in Vrindavan was an added perfection. This meeting with his beloved guide and friend was different from the time in 1932 when Abai had seen him on the Vrindavan Parikram. Now Abai was no longer sitting anonymously in the back of the room. Now he was a bona fide disciple, recognized as the Kavi who had written the praiseworthy poem and essay for the Vyas Puja earlier that year in February. The young man who had listened well, the devotee who had helped the Allahabad Math and who had established the Math in Bombay. Already on this visit, Abai had occasion to be alone with his spiritual master, who had remembered Abai's son and presented him with a small Bundi jacket. And now, as they walked together alone on the bank of Radhakund, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta turned and spoke confidentially to Abai. There had been some quarreling amongst the leading disciples in Calcutta, he said, and this distressed him very much. Even now in Vrindavan, it weighed heavily on his mind. Some of his disciples had been fighting over who would use various rooms and facilities at the Gaudiya Math headquarters in Calcutta. These devotees were all members of the same Math, and the building was for propagating Krishna consciousness under the leadership of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Yet even in their spiritual master's presence, they were quarreling. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas were supposed to be free from envy of any creature, what to speak of envy of one another. If they were to fight now, what would they do after their spiritual master passed away? Abai had no part in these matters and did not even know the details or who was involved. But as he listened to his spiritual master, he also became distressed. Deeply concerned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to Abai, Agun Jalabe, there will be fire. One day there will be fire in the Calcutta Gaudiya Math, and that fire of party interests would spread and destroy. Abai heard but did not know what to make of it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had fought so long and boldly to establish that anyone of any birth could be elevated to become a Brahmana, a sannyasi, or a Vaishnava. But if his followers became contaminated by little wealth and the desire for prestige, thereby showing themselves to be still low-class men despite their training and purification, then his mission would be disrupted. If in the name of religion they became attached to ease, position, and prestige, it could only mean that they had failed to grasp the teachings of their spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. He was lamenting that these men were simply after the stones and bricks of the building. He condemned. He was very, very sorry. When we live in a rented house, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, if we could collect 200 or 300 rupees, we were living very nicely at Ulta Dunga. We were happier then. But since we have been given this marble palace in Bagh Bazaar, there is friction between our men. Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be the proprietor of this room? Everyone is planning in different ways. It would be better to take the marble from the walls and secure money. If I could do this and print books, that would be better. Abai felt his spiritual master speaking to him in urgency, asking him for help or warning him to avert a disaster. But what could he do? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta then said directly to Abai, Amar Icha Chila Kichu Bai Karana. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Standing by Radha Kund and beholding his spiritual master, Abai felt the words deeply enter into his own life. If you ever get money, print books. "13 months later, December 1936, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was in poor health at Jagannath Puri. Abai was in Bombay, and he wanted to write his spiritual master, he wanted to write his Guru Maharaj a letter. He is a little kind upon me, Abai thought. He will understand my request, and he began to write. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. You have got many disciples, and I am one of them, but they are doing direct service to you. Some of them are brahmacharis, some of them are sannyasis, but I am a householder. I cannot. Sometimes I give monetary help, while I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do? 2 weeks later, Abai received a reply. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the language of the other members. Let's hear that again. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of the other members. So you preach in English, but he's saying with those not conversant with the language of the other members. That's Bengalis, Oriens, what other dialects in India. So who could you say is not conversant with the languages of those Indian dialects? The whole world. I have every hope this will do good to yourself as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings to the people in general, as well as philosophers and religionists. Can someone get me the final volume, Antya Leela, of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita we were reading during our Mangal Artik little excerpt? The last one. Yeah, there you go. It is my wish that devotees of Lord Chaitanya all over the world enjoy this translation, and I am glad to express my gratitude to the learned men in the Western countries. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he made it a point to focus on preaching to the leading personalities in academia, in leadership, political positions, the intelligentsia. So our Srila Prabhupada continued that emphasis, while at the same time he ended up on the Bowery and then the Lower East Side, and it seemed like, Prabhupada's movement, this is a hippie movement. Ramananda. I was shocked that he was leaving the Lower East Side. I thought it was here and it would stay here eternally. And Prabhupada utilized the hippie movement to its fullest extent, but at a certain point, early on, he said, we're not a hippie movement. And he shifted the focus, especially after transcendental book distribution began in earnest. I am very glad to express my gratitude to the learned men in the Western countries who are so pleased with my work that they are ordering in advance all my books that will be published in the future. That is the work of Srila Prabhupada's library party, who traveled all over the United States, all over Europe, and even into the part of Europe that was divided east and west after the conclusion of World War II. On this occasion, therefore, I request my disciples who are determined to help me in this work to continue their cooperation fully, so that philosophers, scholars, religionists, and people in general all over the world will benefit by reading our transcendental literatures such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Abai at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at their first meeting in 1922, 14 years prior. He took it as a confirmation. There was now no doubt as to the purpose of his life. So, what is the purpose of my life? You fine-tune according to who you are. We're not all the same in our situation. But to assist Srila Prabhupada in preaching and expanding his movement, that is the purpose of our life. The purpose of the life, whose sole desire was to serve his spiritual master. We're hearing again and again. The disciple's life is to serve his spiritual master. Gargamuni, when he was just coming to 26 2nd Avenue, you see matchless gifts, and everybody's just kind of like laying around. I remember during Jayadvaita Maharaj's Vyas Puja weekend, we went over to see the sights on Henry Street and Tiffany Place. And when we got to 2nd Avenue, question was asked him, what were you doing all day? And he really couldn't remember, what was our service? So anyway, Gargamuni said, Prabhupada, we're here, and, what are we supposed to be doing? And Prabhupada said, The duty of the disciple is to help the spiritual master in his work. Well, Gargamuni's telling when he first heard that, but Swamiji doesn't work. He doesn't go out and work a job. And, and then he realized that he's trying to write and print and distribute books. So then he got it in his head, and, Prabhupada's just typing. And so then he saw a dictaphone, in a shop window, said, hey, wow, if Prabhupada, this is... So he spent it was like $175, which is a lot of money back then. So, anyway. What his spiritual master had said in Calcutta in 1922 had not been a chance remark, nor had that been a chance meeting. The instruction was the same. Turn yourself into a very good English preacher. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. So, since it is a fast day, I am going to continue under the assumption that I can go past 9 o'clock because I'm not interfering with the prasadam distribution. Okay, we're going to go till 1:30, right? We're going to go a little bit longer. His Grace Rupa Vilas Prabhu made a very nice biographical book of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the late 1980s called Raya Vishnu. So I'd like to add a little of his presentation here to the class, which perhaps gives a little more detail. In October, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went to Jagannath Puri, and there he exhibited the pastime of illness for some time at the Chatak Parvat in Jagannath Puri, which is considered to be non-different from Giri Govardhan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur observed Madhvacharya's appearance day celebration and chanted verses specified for such occasions from the writings of Srila Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. He also held a similar festival for his spiritual master, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji, whose disappearance day is on the Uttan Ekadasi, the final Ekadasi of the month of Kartik, and of Chaturmasya. While he was passing his days in Puri, he was often heard to utter phrases from the verses of Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. O Govardhan, please fulfill my desire. O Govardhan, please give me a dwelling place on the banks of the pond nearby you. He also said pointedly, you all take the sincere Hari Bhajan. There are not many more days. He gave lectures in Puri for about a month and a half, and then on the 6th of December, he left Puri for Calcutta. He spoke of the importance of good association, the mystery of Lord Chaitanya's madness and separation in Puri during the last days at the Gambhira in association of Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. He spoke of the Guru's vision of seeing his Guru everywhere. It is my Guru Dev who is graciously present in all these different forms. If he is not graciously present in all these different forms, who would then preserve me? Those whom my Guru Dev has made his own are my saviors. The order of the gurus who have in their nature the protecting power of the divinity are always present in different forms and figures to bestow their mercy on me. All of them are specific manifestations of Sri Guru who confers spiritual knowledge. The transcendental reflections, which are also of the nature of supporters, are the worship of the divinity which appear in the different planes of cognitive existences, are my Guru Dev in his different forms. He who is constantly showing us how to serve Godhead throughout life is no other than our Sri Guru Dev. Sri Guru Dev is present in every object as the supporting principle. He is graciously present in every object. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta quoted a very elevated verse from the Rasa Panchajaya, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Leela in the 10th canto. This is the Gopis' Songs of Separation, chapter 30, verse number 9. O Chuta, O Priyala, O Panasa, Asan, and Kovidar, O Jambu, Arka, Bilva, Bakul, and Amra, O Kadamba and Nipa, and all you other plants and trees living by the banks of Jamuna, who have dedicated your very existence to the welfare of others. We gopis have lost our minds, so please tell us where Krishna has gone. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also discussed the danger of discussing other topics after having admitted the topics of the Supreme Lord are superior, thereby indicating that other topics in connection with the Lord are inferior. He quoted the line from Raghunath Das Goswami's Manashiksha, always give up pride. He discussed the necessity of being careful about offenses to Vaishnavas, especially in connection to the Brahmate verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, particularly describing the dangerous creeper of adoration, profit, and distinction. He quoted from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Saranagati from the Dainya humility section, which begins Amara Jivana Sada Pape Rata Nakilo Punyera Tesa. Lesa. I'm an impious sinner and have caused others great anxiety and trouble, in which Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur feels himself to be a grossly sinful, materialistic person. It is clear from these themes that aside from personally feeling a state of profound humility, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was discussing the giving up of pride, the weeds that choke the creeper of devotion, and the above verses were a profound instruction and warning to his disciples about how to cultivate bhakti with great humility themselves. He was aware of the fire of ordeal that was to come for them collectively and individually. Therefore, he identified the anarthas and explained how to remove them without falling prey to arrogance or envy of others. The great Acharya, who was now soon to depart, was giving essential instructions about the pitfalls that would ensnare many of his disciples. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur elaborated on these themes in Dhaka in 1935. Of course, at that time, this was East Bengal, still part of India, not Bangladesh. Look within, mend yourself, rather than pry into the frailties of others. In this world of Maya, averse to the Lord, full of trials and tribulations, only patience, humility, and respect for others are our friends for Hari Bhajan. The Lord, Gaura Sundar, puts his devotees in various difficulties and associations to test their patience and strength of mind. Success depends on their good fortune. When faults in others misguide and delude you, have patience, introspect, find faults in yourself. Know that others cannot harm you unless you harm yourself. I wish that every selfless, tender-hearted person of Gaudiya Math will be prepared to shed 200 gallons of blood for the nourishment of the spiritual corpus of every individual of this world. The theme of ridding oneself of anarthas was strongly being preached by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Compassionately, he was urging everyone to give up pride and envy and simply immerse themselves in spreading the glories of the Lord. His mission had become an immense vehicle for this. He didn't want it to fail. He quoted multiple sources to establish the point of single-minded devotion to Krishna. Finally, he concluded, "We are all sojourners on the path of death. Everyone has to die. Therefore, in this state of life, whether one is male or female, high or low, king or subject, rich or poor, learned or foolish, everyone can make this very rare human form of life successful by becoming a servant of the eternally pure, completely blissful Sri Hari. Even in this conditioned life, one can become liberated. Therefore, it is overwhelmingly necessary to try." On December 23rd, 8 days before entering the eternal pastimes of the Lord, he made the following remarks. "I have given anxiety to many people, as I have been compelled to speak genuinely truthful words, and as I have told people to worship Hari without any hypocrisy. There are possibly many people who even consider me to be an enemy, so that they may become eager to perform the sincere service of Sri Krishna, freed from other desires and deceitfulness. I have given various types of anxiety to numerous people. One day or another, they will certainly be able to understand this." With great enthusiasm, preach the words of Sri Rupa Raghunath to everyone. Our ultimately desirable object is to become the dust at the lotus feet of the followers of Sri Rupa. All of you remain united in allegiance to the Ashraya Vigraha, spiritual master, in order to satisfy the senses of the transcendental entity of non-dual knowledge. Everyone with the sole view of worshiping Hari will carry on life in this temporary 2-day material existence in any way possible. Do not give up the worship of Hari, even amidst hundreds of dangers, hundreds of insults, or hundreds of persecutions. Do not become unenthusiastic upon seeing the majority of people in this world are not accepting the message of Krishna's sincere worship. Never give up the audition and glorification of the topics of Krishna. They are your own personal worship and your very all and all. Being humble like a blade of grass and patient like a tree, constantly glorify Hari. We are nurturing a desire to dedicate this good-for-nothing body and the Sankirtan sacrifice of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and his associates. We are not at all desirous of any heroism in fruit of action or religion, but our real condition is to be the dust at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Prabhu, birth after birth. This is our all and all. The line of Bhakti Vinod will never be closed. With even more enthusiasm, you should become engaged in preaching the desire of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's heart. Amongst you, there are many capable and accomplished men. We have no other desire at all. These are our only words. Taking a blade of grass between my teeth, I fall down and again pray that I may become the dust at the feet of Srimad Rupa, birth after birth. There are various types of inconveniences while staying in this world, but there is no need for us to become extremely afflicted by these inconveniences or to try to dispel these inconveniences. While staying here, it is necessary for us to gain an introduction into what our eternal life will be and to what entity we will attain to after all these inconveniences have been removed. Here, it is compulsory to make decisions about all those objects which attract and repel us in various ways, both that which I want and do not want. We will be drawn by the attraction and repulsions of this place to the same degree as the amount of intervening distance there is between us and the lotus feet of Krishna. When we go beyond the attractions and repulsions of this world and are attracted by the transcendental name, then the topics about the mellow of service to Sri Krishna can be understood. At the present time, the topics about Krishna are greatly startling and perplexing. Adventitious occurrences are obstructing our eternally needed realization. To eliminate these, everyone who holds the name of a human being is more or less consciously or unconsciously engaged in a struggle. To enter into that eternally needed kingdom beyond all duality is our only necessity. In this world, we do not have any attachment or aversion towards anybody. All the arrangements of this world are momentary. That supreme desiratum is indispensably necessary for every single person. May all of you, with one aim and in a single voice, attain the right of serving the original Ashraya Vigraha. May the flow of thought of Sri Rupa's followers stream all over the world. May we never, in any condition whatsoever, show aversion to the sacrifice of chanting the seven-tongued Sankirtan of Sri Krishna. If there is ever increasing attachment for this, perfection on all sides will be achieved. May all of you, by the earnest pursuance of Sri Rupa's followers, preach the words of Sri Rupa Raghunath in a fearless voice with supreme enthusiasm. Disappearance, Nitya Leela. On the morning of December 31st, 1936, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur requested Sripad B.R. Sridhar Maharaj to sing Sri Rupa Manjari by Narottam Das Thakur and Sripad Naveen Krishna Vidyalankar to sing the Shishastakam. In the forenoon, he requested the editor of the Gaudiya magazine to see it that the Vaishnava Banjuska casket of Vaishnava vocabulary would be compiled and published.